Yes, good to go now, Chairman.
Lovely, thank you very much. Jevely, can we do a roll call, please, to begin with?
Yeah. Okay, councillors, if you could just confirm that you've all got audio and visual, please. Councillor Auger.
Yes, I have both, thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Chartler.
Yes to both.
Councillor Cribbin.
Yes to both.
Councillor Guildford. Councillor Hills.
Yes to both.
Councillor James.
Yes to both.
Councillor Lomax.
Somebody left.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes to both.
Councillor Randall.
Yes to both.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yes to both.
Okay, thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Welcome everyone to our meeting. Can we just first remind us of the general rules that we'll probably put everyone on mute, and then if you can unmute yourself and raise your blue hand if you want to speak, just helps with the acoustics at the meeting. So to begin with regard, are we all happy for that the minutes are correct and they can be signed at some stage? Thank you very much. Okay, I know we have some issues with attendance. So first of all, are there any apologies, Jevely, for the meeting?
Yes, Councillor Steve Osborne.
Okay, thank you. And Joe, you have your hand up. You have a commitment. Do you want to? Sorry, Joe. Sorry, Joe, you're on mute.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave the meeting at 6:45 because you all know my day job and I've got an NHS mobilisation because the intention is to deliver the vaccines through GP surgeries. So I really do need to get to that meeting.
Now, I think we would all appreciate you going, and best of luck with those arrangements. Thank you for your service in the area. It's going to be quite crucial to us all. So, yeah, no problem. Please just remove yourself from the meeting when you're ready to go. But thank you for coming to part of the meeting anyway. Declarations of members' interest. Does anyone want to declare anything of any interest for the agendaed items this evening? No? Okay, thank you. If at any stage you feel there is an interest you need to declare, please can you raise that issue and we'll check that out with the monitoring officer. We'll then move into the agendas. Strategic planning issues. Councillor Alan Chandler, starting off please with the consultation on raising accessibility standards for new homes. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure if I should declare an interest in this item, but yeah. I hope that everybody's actually interested in it. The government is carrying out a consultation as to whether or not they should they wish to raise the accessibility standards for new homes, and so they are asking a number of questions which you will have seen from the proposed draft response, and this is to be a resolved item, Chairman, the resolution being that we should agree the draft response. Accessibility to buildings is generally governed by Part M of the building regulations, and document 4, Part M4, deals particularly with accessibility of dwellings. And there are 3 main parts to that. There's the Part M4 brackets 1, which is accessibility of what are they called visitable buildings, which I would have thought was any building. M42 is new homes, dwellings, and M43 is homes for wheelchair users. The government's consultation suggested that there will be 5 optional approaches to this and you can see those listed on page 10 of your papers, options 1 to 5. Reading through, particularly in knowing quite a lot about some of these points, I did make the remark earlier in the week that this is a bit like saying, would you rather be hung or shot? But we have decided, officers have decided, and we've discussed it, that the best one of those options is option 2, which is to make M42 a mandatory requirement as a minimum standard, M41 applying by exception only where M42 is impracticable and unachievable. For example, if you were building a new flat above a shop or a garage, it might not be possible to make it accessible to the standard of Part 2. And M43, the wheelchair users' dwellings, would apply as now, where there's a local planning policy in place. We are in the fortunate position of having an up-to-date local plan, so we can rely on policies in that as appropriate. There's a statement in the paper that changes to standards would only apply to new homes and not to the refurbishment of existing homes, and I think it's important to bear that in mind. And we're asked to suggest what approach government should take instead if we didn't think that any of the options were suitable. When I was discussing this earlier in the week with Simon, I did raise the issue that as a disabled person, a wheelchair user, I often find that buildings which claim to be compliant with Part M of the building regulations are still not accessible by real people in real wheelchairs. And I see a few people assenting to that view. So I did wonder, Chairman, if we might add a comment to the end of our response to this consultation, making that point that unless the standards are rigorously monitored and as necessary enforcement action is taken, then they are not necessarily effective. But apart from that, Chairman, I recommend that to Strategy Group that we agree to send the draft response as in the paperwork. That's it, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments, please? There doesn't seem to be much of a disagreement on the consultation. Thank you for that. Just one thing with regard to, so you said that this will not relate to an extension being built once these are introduced. So that would be a refurbishment, would it? Or would an extension have to be compliant with these regs?
I'm not sure I can answer that question, Chairman. I don't know if any of the staff can, but I would have thought that refurbishment might include the addition of extension. I guess it makes sense to require that if you have a home which is occupied by a disabled or elderly person, that if you extend it in any way, you should make that extension as accessible as the rest of it.
Yes, Simon, any thoughts on that?
Chairman, I think the simplest thing to say is we will confirm that to members.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay. So first item then, if we're happy to resolve this item, please do so. Please indicate with a raised right hand, please, with a raised hand. Thank you. Anyone against it or abstaining? Nope. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Alan. That's the first one done. We'll move on to the Clipston proposed conservation area.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I won't bore members too much with this, I hope, because we are familiar with the concept of conservation areas. Clipston is not up to now a conservation area, although it does have a lot of listed buildings and scheduled monuments. So it's obviously ripe for designation as a conservation area. A lot of the usual work has been carried out already. We've had one series of consultations. when that was possible, and work has been done to draft the conservation area appraisal and management plan, and also for the particular attention of some members perhaps, to propose some Article 4 directions to control some of aspects of development within that conservation area. Currently we have 31 conservation areas. This is a new one. As I've mentioned, Clipston has a high proportion of buildings that are listed, a significant number of non-designated heritage assets of significance, and a large proportion of the land around the outskirts are designated as scheduled monuments that contain earthworks relating to medieval development. There is a village design statement for Clipston, and they are in the process of developing a neighbourhood development plan, which is also of interest perhaps. So the draft Clipston Conservation Area Proposal and Management Plan describes the historic and aesthetic significance and character, sets out the spatial analysis and architectural analysis as you'd expect, assesses potential threats and proposes candidates for a local list, and proposes Article 4 direction. The resolved item before us this evening, Chairman, is that we should carry out a consultation. So we don't need to discuss the conservation area proposal, we simply put it out for consultation. Of course, we all know that at the moment consultation is a bit of a challenge because of the pandemic and the restrictions that go with it, but nevertheless we do have a process which we can follow, which will satisfy all the needs of the regulations, some of which have, as you probably guess, been modified in the light of the pandemic controls, as you might expect. So regarding, for example, public meetings. So that's it really, Chairman. Simply to resolve that we should send this out for consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Adam Brown, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I must say, looking through the papers, that Clipston looks like a particularly beautiful village. I've yet to have the pleasure of visiting there, but hopefully I shall do at some point soon. I would like to make the request that we separate out the two resolved items when we come to a vote, simply because whilst I've no objections whatsoever to consulting on the conservation area appraisal and management plan, members will recall that recently we had some training on Article 4 directions, at which and subsequent to which I raised some basic questions about how Article 4 directions would be implemented, under what circumstances a planning application fee may or may not be levied upon residents whose properties were subject to Article 4 directions, and I've yet to receive answers to many, if any, of those questions. Therefore, I would argue quite strongly to members that if those very basic questions can't be answered to members, how can we expect to go out and conduct a meaningful consultation with the public when we don't know some very basic aspects of how we will be managing these Article 4 directions? Because at this particular moment in time, the subject of whether or not we do decide to levy a planning application fee appears to be unclear at best, and at worst it looks like amounting to little more than a stealth tax on various residents across our district. Now, if we do go ahead and levy such measures upon certain properties within our district, very soon indeed we will lose control of those fees as we pass over to the new West Northamptonshire Council. So even if we were to propose that we exempted properties subject to Article 4 directions from such fees, such an exemption may not be guaranteed by the new council. Therefore, under these circumstances, and because my questions remain unanswered, I cannot support even a consultation on Article 4 directions, and I would urge other members to do likewise. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. The first thing is, presumably, monitoring officer, we can split the two for resolving this item Can you give me an indication on that?
Yes, yes, you
Thank
can,
you.
Chairman.
And secondly, is there any response from officers with regard to Adam's concerns and worries?
Chairman, I can certainly try. Councillor Brown, would you mind just outlining what the questions are specifically?
I had about a dozen, Simon, so I'm more than happy to forward you the email that I sent to the officer in question. I won't name her in this public meeting because I don't think it's appropriate to do so. I'm more than happy to forward you that email immediately after this meeting, but it would take me some time to go back into my emails and then read out the list of a dozen or so questions that I put forward some weeks ago.
That's understood. I mean, the simple principle is if an Article 4 direction is in place, then planning permission is required. Therefore, the council levies the fee set out in the relevant secondary legislation set by government for that planning application. Obviously, I haven't seen the detailed list of questions, but essentially there is a charge. And in fact, building on Councillor Brown's question, I think at last council, we've actually included what the current fee is in the report, so members have that information to hand. So I'm a little bit unsure what the uncertainty is. It strikes me as relatively straightforward, but doubtless there is some subtlety that I'm missing.
Okay, yeah, Councillor Brown, please.
Yeah, the question that I had raised, amongst others, was whether that fee would be levied on all requests to undertake works at these properties, even if they were on a very minor scale. And I expanded on that and set out several hypotheses and asked whether or not, under those circumstances, the £200 fee would still be levied upon property owners. Under many circumstances, I would deem it highly inappropriate to do so. But as I say, I've yet to receive an answer.
Through you, Chairman, thank you for that. I understand the issue. That's a question about what's known as de minimis in the good Latin, i.e. so small it doesn't count. And I appreciate that that's going to require a bit of careful consideration to give a precise answer to.
Okay, Councillor James. You're muted, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand where Councillor Brown is coming from. I do have a little bit of concern about this because when we started this process of approving Article 4 directions for other conservation areas, I was under the impression that the Article 4 directions applied only to those locally listed properties. But it appears now that it applies to every single property in that particular conservation area where Article 4 directions apply. And there are going to be huge anomalies here because lots of people in conservation areas, particularly in my own village here, have got UPVC double glazed windows in old stone properties. I mean, are we really suggesting that if in a few years' time people want to replace those windows like for like, that they risk the possibility that the planning application would be turned down, and which to me seems an absurdity. It really does. I think we've got to be very careful on this, and had I known that it applied to a blanket coverage, I would never have supported Article 4 directions in any way at all. And that is my worry.
Okay, thank you, Councillor James. Simon.
Chairman, just to clarify, the reports, I think, to be fair, have always been clear, and it varies on a case-by-case basis. The Article 4 directions are used highly selectively to control where there is something particularly important to the character of the area to be protected. So, for example, in Bolton, there were only, I think, about half a dozen properties that were affected, not even all the ones that were locally listed. In Harleston, quite a large number of properties were protected, but because that's the nature of Harleston. There's beautiful stone houses with many original features. In the case of Clipston, if you refer to page 97 of the appraisal, it gives a precise list of what is proposed to consult on in terms of withdrawing permitted development rights. And you can see it is a specific list. There's a fair number of properties on it, but it certainly isn't all the houses in Clipston or all the houses in the conservation area. And of course, the intention is this is a consultation. If people, having looked at this, feel that they are uncomfortable with those proposals, then the council can not proceed with them or proceed with them in a modified form.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Guildford.
I'm slightly confused. It seems that this is not black and white, but there's a grey area. Councillor Brown has referred to, you know, what is a list of anomalies, what does and doesn't apply. You've referred to a list in this report of what could apply, not. So sitting here, I'm confused myself. So I'm not sure I could support a proposal that I'm not sure of the detail myself.
Okay, Simon, do you want to provide some clarity? As far as I'm aware, this is to consult the people in Clipston on whether these whether directions to control development would be appropriate for their village under certain criteria. So they can either accept or reject it, which is their democratic right to do, because they own the properties. Is that correct?
Chairman, I can see Councillor Brown is shaking his head, and I'd have to agree with him on that point. If I just take you through it in stages. Firstly, Councillor Brown's list was a hypothetical list, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've understood this correctly. A hypothetical list of situations where the work may be so minor that you would just regard it as outside the scope of planning control and not worry about it, essentially, and therefore not demand an application and not levy a charge. So that's an entirely separate thing to the list on page 97 of the appraisal, which is a list of the properties which it is proposed Article 4 directions would apply to. For example, Mill House on Chapel Lane and a property called Newbold Farm, just to take the first two on the list. So there's a list of, I don't know, I'm trying to try and add them up, but maybe 30 or 40 properties there where it is proposed that the controls would apply to. What the controls are is clearly spelled out. For example, alteration or replacing of windows and doors, and these will be properties where those windows and doors are of some value, which I suspect means they're not UPVC. So it's quite clear what is proposed in this case. If the people of Clipston don't like those proposals, or in some cases may want us to do more along this line, that certainly happened in Moulton's case, they can say so. And then the council will take a view on what it should do. But once that's decided, of course, by the council, then those rules do apply, whether or not the householder wants them to apply beyond that point. I hope that clarifies the position for members.
Which is, I think that's what I articulated, that they actually decide on whether they want these developments to be appropriate for their village. Is that?
Chairman, it's a consultation response. Ultimately, the council is the body that takes.
Yeah. But they can say, well, we don't like this, and then we consider their views on that.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, David, last one on this, and then we'll move to a vote on the two aspects of the resolution. Over to you, David, please. Councillor James.
Thank you. So let me understand this properly. It is only the locally listed properties to which Article 4 directions apply.
Chairman, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
No, it's the properties listed in this case on page 90, whatever it is, 97 of the appraisal. A locally listed property may not end up on Article 4 list if there's nothing about that property which needs this kind of protection. Equally, you might be a property which is not locally listed but is important in the conservation area and has, for example, particularly nice stone windows or something, sorry, stone window frames clearly, and therefore you would end up on this list. But there is a precise list of which properties are included, as there has been in each case to date.
Fine, thank you, that's clarified.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Simon, when the consultation goes out, presumably the residents' Article 4 directions are clearly explained to them, including the cost of the application, etc.
We will certainly be doing that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, thank you, members. Thank you, Adam, for bringing that point. I know that's been an issue for you. So can we then, first of all, then please, to resolve this item, first of all, can you please do so by an indicated hand? If you're happy with element 1, which is the draft consultation and management plan as per Appendix A, to go for a consultation to be undertaken. Please raise your hand if you're happy. And any abstentions or objections to that? So that's through that one. Okay. With regard to Article 4 directions, if you're happy for that to go to consultation, please do so by a raised hand. Thank you. Okay, Jeremy, can we take account of this, please? Because it's obviously split.
7, I've got 8.
We're happy with that?
Can you just keep your hands there, please, members? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 8 in favour, Chairman.
Thank you. And anyone against, please?
3 against, Chairman.
And any abstentions then?
No.
Okay. Well, that resolution is also carried then, so it will go to consultation. And I'm sure it would be good if we could resolve those issues with regard to what Councillor Brown put through out of this meeting, and then maybe a briefing note for real clarity on it, so that we all get a good understanding of the Article 4 directions. Okay, thank you. Let's now move on, please, to the confirmation of Article 4 directions to remove permitted development rights for change of use from offices to dwellings. So over to you, Alan.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's another Article 4 direction. I think this is much clearer. There is currently a permitted development right for offices to be converted to dwellings without permission being sought from the local planning authority. And clearly this could have a damaging effect on the economy and employment prospects within the district. So we think that it would be a good idea to confirm a delayed rather than immediate Article 4 direction to remove the permitted development right, which allows offices to be converted to dwellings. All that does, of course, Chairman, is to require that anybody who thinks that they've got an office that nobody's using anymore and it could be converted to a dwelling, they must apply for permission. We did send this proposal out for consultation, and 5 responses have been received in the 2 consultations that have been carried out. 4 parish councils, including Daventry Town Council, welcomed the introduction of the Article 4 direction. 1 resident responded, didn't oppose it. So as the only responses to the consultation were supportive, no alterations are proposed to the original draft Article 4 direction. There is a slight issue, well, it's not really an issue, but a comment worth making. Since the Article 4 direction was created, the government have made some changes to the permitted development rights and the usage classes, which now allows, for example, a range of buildings, including offices, to be demolished and replaced by a block of flats or a single detached house. These are subjected to such extensive limitations and prior approval considerations. We think that they're not a concern to make us rethink this Article 4 direction. In particular, prior approval is required in relation to the impact on the amenity of the new building, and also the effect on the economic forces in the locality. So we're not it's not considered that confirming this Article 4 direction would be ineffective due to the new permitted development rights, and in many ways it would bring office to residential conversions more into line with the requirements of the new permitted development right. The motion before Strategy Group, Chairman, is that we should recommend that Council confirm this Article 4 direction, in which case it would come into force on the 26th of February next year. So that's what I'm asking for, Chairman, that we should recommend that this Article 4 direction go to Council for the removal of the permitted development rights for change of use from Class B1A offices to Class C3 dwelling houses.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think Councillor Chandler makes the point very well. Clearly, not all Article 4 directions are created equal, and this is a responsible and a proportionate use of Article 4 directions, and I'm quite happy to support this recommendation before us.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments, please? No, thank you. Let's then take this for a vote. Are we happy to recommend it to full Council? We are. Please do so by indicated hand, please. Thank you. Any abstentions or objections? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you, Alan, for that. And your final one, sir, is the adoption of the Drayton Park Design Statement. Please, over to you, sir.
Thank you again, Chairman. Yes, we're used to village design statements. Drayton Park isn't a village, so we're calling it the Drayton Park Design Statement. It's been out to consultation, and the Strategy Group resolved that it should go for consultation. We had a 6-week consultation in March, April. Then, of course, national lockdown happened, or lockdown 1, as we must now call it. So the regulations were tweaked by government, and so we carried out a secondary consultation, and what we're wishing to do is that we should recommend that Council should approve the proposed changes to the Drayton Park Design Statement. They are mostly editorial technical, that further minor editorial changes be made to bring it into line with its adopted form, and that the revised design statement be adopted. Happy if members want to discuss that any further. I could make the point for Councillor Morgan that we have promised a change to the pictorial representation of the wildlife.
Thank you. Councillor Randall, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, sitting on the Town Council on planning, we have had a few planning applications come forward for Drayton Park, and I know they've already got the design. They've got a design statement of such that was there when these properties are built. So if anything comes forward on planning before this gets approved at full council, do we sort of do I work by what they've already got, or is this to be taken into consideration as it's if it gets approved this evening?
Okay, well, certainly won't be through full council, but has anyone got to give some clarity on that? Please, Simon Bowers, thank you.
Chairman, famously in planning law, anything is capable of being a material consideration. So I think something which has gone through this meeting potentially unanimously, I don't wish to prejudge what might happen in a few moments, would be a material consideration. Clearly it will have more weight once it's formally adopted by the council, but in the event there's a planning decision between now and full council, which may be relatively unlikely anyway, I'm sure this could be had regard to.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Does that help you, Councillor Randall? Yeah, okay. All right. Doesn't look like anyone wishes to comment, so if we're happy to recommend this paper to full council, please do so by indicated hand, please. Thank you. Any opposed or any abstention? Very much. Thank you, and give Councillor Charper for presenting those papers. I'd like to move to Councillor Crippen, please. Housing and environmental issues, food and health and safety service plans, please, sir.
Thank you, Chair. This is just a relatively straightforward paper to strategy tonight to put forward to us to approve the food and health and safety service plans for the coming year. It's something we do every year, and doesn't normally attract an awful lot of dissent from members, but basically we have to put forward our plans. The Food Standards Agency, the FSA, and Health and Safety Executive, HSE, require us to do that by statute. So we have to put our plans forward for the coming year, and they're quite prescriptive in what we are laid down that we have to do year on year. The basic premise of us putting these plans forward is to make sure that we keep our residents safe with regard to food outlets and food and health and safety across the district with regard to food. So it's very important that we have these plans, and we have some staff to actually follow those up, do various checks across the district and testing of food and that across there to make sure we're all safe and we don't end up with food poisoning and things like that. Now, we obviously are a little bit later this year than normally to produce these plans, largely due to the COVID-19 pandemic that's caused us to have to prioritise our work in respect of that. But we can't produce these plans before the end of the previous financial year, because we have to include a lot of data that comes from previous years within our service plans for next year. So they would normally come to our sort of attention probably about around the first quarter of a year normally. But obviously this year we had the pandemic, which has caused us to concentrate on making sure that everybody's safe in that respect. The government has put a lot of extra work on our environmental health department to make sure that businesses across the district are COVID secure. And no, I want to put on record tonight my thanks as portfolio holder to all our officers that have worked really, really hard during this time. They've kept our residents as safe as we possibly can through the coronavirus, in respect of making sure that all businesses are safe and COVID secure. And they are working extra hard to make sure this actually happens. So we've got these service plans before us tonight. Members will probably realise that we may not be able to hit all our targets probably for this coming year with regard to the amount of properties that we normally go out and check. We've been given a bit of a dispensation. If you look at page 164, the bottom part of that, the bottom half of that page will give us an explanation there as to where we are and what the Food Safety Agency and HSE are allowing us to do or telling us to do. We are prioritising our environmental health stuff in respect of COVID. So we may not be able to visit every single property or make sure that all the inspections for food safety are carried out, but we have a risk approach to it in respect of making sure that we the very serious issues are addressed, and perhaps the smaller properties that are performing well and have done over the last few years aren't necessarily visited this particular year if they haven't got any concerns. So we are making sure that it's still safe, but are concentrating on the bigger issues. Going forward, and especially when we come back out of the lockdown too, our officers will be making sure that everything is safe as possible with regard to COVID when all the businesses open back up again, all the restaurants and pubs and bars and things. So there's a lot of extra work for them to do. The government is piling more and more pressure on our environmental health officers to take forward health and safety Health and Safety at Work Act inspections and things as well going forward. So we're being pressed in every direction, but I'm pretty sure that our officers are doing the very best they can to make sure that we're keeping us all safe as possible. So we are aware that we probably won't be able to hit all our targets in respect to what we would normally do in a year, but and that's something that's been acknowledged on the county's risk register for food safety across the whole county. So it's acknowledged, but I think we will be making sure that everyone's kept as safe as possible. So just to say, you've got the plan before you at page 167 onwards. There's probably not a lot more I can say about what it contains, but basically it's there, and it's more or less in the same format that it is in every year going forward. So there shouldn't be an awful lot to have to explain. But if members have got any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Councillor Cribbin. We have a few people that would like to speak. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and I'm grateful to Councillor Cribbin for his explanation, and especially the warm words that he has for the officers who have been working so hard through what's been a very difficult period. But I just wanted to, off the back of that, just add some words about how difficult a period this has been for restaurant owners, takeaway owners, pub owners, many of whom have had to now make drastic changes to their businesses at very short notice on 2 occasions. It's been a time of unprecedented difficulty in the hospitality industry. And I noticed in several sections of the report, it emphasises the advice side of the environmental health service, if that's the right terminology. And I'd just like a modicum of reassurance, if possible, that we are doing whatever possible to give advice to businesses where that's the appropriate step to take. Obviously, the health of the public and the health of the customers that these businesses are serving is our top priority. But I would hope that under what have been incredibly trying circumstances for so many business owners, that we're also showing due understanding to those unprecedented circumstances.
Thank you. Councillor Cribbin, do you want to respond to that? And sorry, and then we'll go on to Maria Taylor, would also like to comment.
Yeah, I'd like to reassure Councillor Brown and all councillors, all members of the public, indeed those that may be listening in tonight, that our officers are, that they do a lot of good work with regard to advice, and they've actually been out there advising our restaurateurs and pub and cafe owners how best to get round the horrible things that are going on with COVID, and how they can actually best keep themselves going and whilst they comply with COVID regulations. Now, I appreciate fully that it's a terrible time for businesses at the moment, and we're doing all we can to help them get through the unprecedented times we've got before us. So yeah, I mean, we will, I'm pretty sure Maria will back me up as well when she comes on to say that we will be out there there is a lot of advice that we can give to our businesses to help keep them going, really, and help comply with the law. But obviously we're being pragmatic and sensible about how we do things. We don't want to impose additional hardship on them in any way, shape or form. So I'd like to reiterate that.
Thank you, Councillor Cribbin. Maria Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very happy to reassure you, councillors, that when we came out of the first lockdown, our officers from all disciplines, licensing, environmental health, community safety, we rallied everybody around to be out there on the ground to provide reassurance and support, practical advice and help. We haven't taken, we didn't go out there looking to be enforcers. We went out there to be assisting, and we had lots of really positive feedback about that. And it wasn't just in Daventry town, we went where we needed to go. So we were out there on the ground, providing a positive encouragement and engagement, because it was a very difficult time. We provided checklists so people could, run through that and make sure that they'd done their own sort of COVID compliance tests and so on. So that went down really well. We'll do the same going forward. we're doing that sort of thing. It's in line with the council's approved enforcement policy for environmental health, which is about engaging and encouraging compliance, and formal enforcement is very much a last resort. We're very much dedicated to that.
Thank you, Maria Taylor. Councillor Lomax, please.
Thank you. Pardon me. I was intrigued, yes, by the figures that were given on page, sorry, page 177 of the plan. There appears to have been in 1718 spikes and then falls subsequently 1920, apart from the food safety incidents. And I just wondered what the reason for that was. I mean, was it a question of staffing? Was it a question of individual incidents, individual happenings that have made those figures worse? Or was it the launch of the HSE business plan?
I'm sorry, Councillor Lomax, can you confirm which page you're talking about? Because the
177, number of microbiological samples and investigated cases under infectious disease control. Those are particular ones.
It's
11 of 17.
It's a very nerdy answer. We took part in good practice trials actually and did extra sampling. So that's what the spike is about.
Right.
So yeah, we were part of an East Midlands trial. So we deliberately went and did extra sampling to find out what nasty, yucky things were hidden. Places can look very clean, and we found some nasties where it looked clean.
Yep.
So yeah,
thank you.
That explains the spike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Maria. Councillor Morgan, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make sure everybody also saw the number in here on page 165 relating to the financial implications 5.1. I'm not sure that, obviously there's so much content in there, but I thought I'd make it explicit. So you've got a figure there, 35,715. To take note of, because when we get to the later paper on the medium-term financial plan, I'll be making reference to that as being accepted if you accept it here as well in the paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for that. You know, I do think there is a balance between in these difficult times, but what will not be compromised is the food safety for all those people that are having takeaways and eating from restaurants. The last thing we want is to add food poisoning to an already difficult situation, and I'm quite confident that our officers are enforcing where appropriate. And another good indication about the work that we're doing is on the Oversight and Engagement Board, which I'm part of. We, from my recollection, I don't know whether Ian can confirm that, we haven't had an outbreak of COVID-19 as a result of food being produced or food being outlets. So it shows that the standards are really high, but we must keep our people safe, but we must also be mindful of the circumstances that we're in at this time. So thank you for that. So if we're happy to recommend this to full council, please do so by a raised hand. Thank you. And anyone to abstain or to reject? No, thank you. Thanks again. Thank you, Councillor Cribbin, for that paper. I'd now like to move on to community, cultural and leisure issues and hand over the time to Councillor Hills, who's going to talk about releasing some Section 106 funding. Over.
Thank you, Chair. Members, as you can see, this is about the release of Section 106 funding. And you have before you the recommendation, namely to approve a funding request totaling 176,308 from a development east of Northampton Road, Brixworth, and the planning reference goes back to 2014 DA 2014/0900, and also 5,058 for Brixworth short map bowls and 171,250 for Brixworth Parish Council. Members, to me, this is straightforward. We as a council prior to the COVID virus had an excellent record in encouraging and promoting sport and physical activity. This ticks all the boxes. It's part of our strategy and is within our protocol. And I would refer you to item 5.1 of the report under financial implications. The sum to be transferred is unallocated Section 106 funding that has already been collected by the District Council. If this funding is not allocated to this project or any other, it will have to be returned to the developer as set out in the agreement. And finally, item 6, which is the conclusions, it says utilising unallocated Section 106 funding is recommended to enable these projects to proceed for the benefit of local residents and also those in the neighbouring villages. Members, I submit this for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? I know we have Councillor Parker there from Brixworth. Any thoughts on that, sir? Is there anything you'd like to say? Sorry, I'll come to you, Councillor Randall, in a minute.
Thank you, Chair. No, I think it's, as Councillor Hills has said, it's all laid out. The money does go back something like 6 years now. So we're now developing plans, and I think the phrase is, we would like our money, please, Chair. So I'd like everybody to vote for it, if we may. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Wendy Randall, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Do we still have S106, or is that completely gone now?
In that, do we still collect it? Is there a question on that? Who can answer that one for us? That's Simon Bowers.
Chairman, Section 106 still exists. It is not generally used for things that are intended to be funded from SIL, but the two systems exist in parallel.
Okay, thank you. No, I just wondered whether, because I was quite interested actually to see that it was used for, things like because I know that obviously one of our bowling clubs in Daventry, a lot of, like you say on here, a lot of them are quite elderly, and I thought, I know a few clubs that will be able to use different equipment like that, and I just wondered whether it was something that they could still approach for on different planning applications, or how that comes about.
Can I come in if I may?
Certainly.
Basically, we have still got grant funding available for various projects, etc. And I'd always suggest if somebody needs help, whilst we cannot guarantee it, that they apply to our grants. The person who looks after the grants, that's Denise Hackett on the District Council, and she will always advise them. Because like you, I think anything that we can get people, particularly those who are more elderly, being involved. And I found short mat bowls, I was far better at it than the long version. So I think that there are grants available and ways that if people want help, I would certainly ask them to get in touch.
That was more my point, really, actually, that whether these things usually are, that they usually come through as on a grant. So that's why I was interested to see it come through as an S106 and not as well.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. You're coming over a bit Dalek-y. We got the gist of that. I'm sure that we're armed with that information. Perhaps explore it further with officers, with projects you may have in mind. Okay, thank you. We'd like to now just one final comment on this. I think this, Councillor Hills took the words out of my mouth, ticks so many boxes. It's so great to use developer money for the health and well-being of the residents of Daventry District. And this is just one example where that is happening. And so for those of you who with me can recommend this, speak for council, please do so by indicated hand. Thank you. Anyone abstaining or objecting to the proposal? No, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Councillor Hills. And we now have two items from our resources portfolio lead. Over to you, Colin, with regard to Treasury Management Strategy.
Thank you, Chair. So here's the resources section of the evening to finish us off. And obviously a lot of this wraps up some of the discussions we've had in the last sort of 10 minutes or so. It's interesting, this, Chair, because it doesn't seem 5 minutes, but it seems a lifetime ago since we had our last interim report. And particularly, you know, those pleasures we have, like getting to see Tony and Audra. It's been very strange this year doing all this remotely. And there are elements of the paper where, you know, your brain, quite frankly, goes a bit rusty and having to explain to you 5 times. So I'll be testing you all this evening on this one. But basically, this is our interim mid-year review. Of course, it's the last one for this authority. And in a way, what you have on these two papers is that point about we're making, even a year ago, don't spend all the money just in case we're going to need it for a rainy day. You remember those conversations pre-COVID? Now, interesting enough, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take through a couple of the highlights in the first paper. And obviously, we have to provide this for SIPFA, and we break it down to various sections. And of course, what you'll be reading here, almost in some respects, is out of date because things are moving so fast. But I'll come to some of those points. But basically, what we're doing here is looking at the economic update for the first half of the year. We all know it's been a rocky road, and an outlook for the next 6 months. Of course, there's a lot of uncertainty around that. A review of our strategy management, and I've got a particular point on there we need to bring to your attention to recommend. Our capital expenditures set out in the capital programme, and then really the investment portfolio we've got a specific point on. As we all know, the economic situation has been pretty scary in the UK, well, globally, and hence here you have a point on 4.1 about quantitative easing, 100 billion, etc. Of course, that has now, I understand, actually gone forward. Obviously not the council's money, but the nation's money. As a result of this, actually, an interest rate cuts at the very beginning of the global pandemic, our rate that we get on our money we've got squirreled away, which, by the way, everybody, is not all our money, is basically very low at this current point in time. And as you can see here, but the base rates, both now and projected for some time to come, being at 0.10, we all know it's on the floor, which does actually have an impact on the amount of income we receive in the form of interest on our deposits. And when you move on to page 191 in your document, there's a section 5.2. I'm going to return to that in a moment. But I'm now going to take you to the next stage, which is page 192, which is about the capital expenditure programme. Basically, we've spent a little bit less than we expected to at the current outturn. And there's a couple of reasons for that, which I'll come to. So basically, we projected to have we had an approved budget for the year of 22,444,000. And that's actually going to be projected to turn out at 20,699,000. There's a couple of projects we speak about in the papers. There's Chapel Brampton pedestrian crossing, which is now no longer required. So that brings us back some cash. And also Leisure Centre East. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you, when you're reading your papers, would have seen the paper. This is what I mean by things moving fast, of course. The paper talks about the gym being open at the end of October. And of course, here we are now nearly the middle of November. And of course, because of lockdown, it's now not open. But you understand that things are moving fast, and that's the reason there for that. If there's any further questions on that specifically in regards to progress, of course, Simon Bowers, I'm sure, would be happy to give us an update. Then we move on to page 193, which is where our deposits are made currently. And you'll see actually in there, we have 4 local authorities we currently have money with. Kettering Borough Council, which of course has been on there for quite some time. And we also have Thurrock, which got added earlier in the year, and Highland Council in July. And really what we've got there is a point that I'll come on to in a moment. Finally, because of the interest rates that we've been experiencing on these deposits, we are actually £50,000 negative to variance of where we thought we would be, beginning of the budgeting cycle. Often at these meetings, we have the pleasure of saying, you know what, we've done better with this money than we thought we would, but this time it's a £50,000 unfavourable variance. That's not to say we haven't had interest on there, of course, but it's £50 lower, £50,000 lower, sorry. Now, the point that I wanted to make as well, which is at the front of the paper regards to the recommendations, there is in section 5.2, there's a change to local authority lending. Now, basically, at the moment, what happens when we have a when we deposit money, so we loan money to somebody, we basically have a from the point of agreement to the time the money comes back, we have 12 months. Now, basically, because of this, if we do forward trading, if you like, let's say, for instance, we're in local council and we said we will deposit the money with you in, say, a month's time, that means currently we have to get the money back a year from now, which only gives us 11 months, basically. What we're looking to do in this section here is a technical change, which basically says we'd like to extend it to a period of 5 years, which then enables us to have that flexibility in order to get higher interest rates. So the point is, it's very low interest rates currently. It's been very difficult to achieve that interest we've been more familiar with, and as a result, by having a little bit extra time, gives a little bit of extra flexibility. And quite frankly, if anybody doesn't understand that, Audra will help, but I think it's very, very straightforward for you. Did anybody have any questions on that one? Because I think that's the end of that paper. Audra, thank you. Oh, sorry, I'm not the chairman. I do apologise. Too many work meetings on Zoom. Sorry, Chair.
Please, you're now advancing above your station.
Get back on your station. Sorry,
get back in your box. Audra, please. Thank you.
Members, if I may, and Councillor Morgan has put it very well, but there's an important distinction that we need to make. I can already place investments with other local authorities up to 5 years. So in that sense, it's not new. It's only forward deals that we're restricted to within 1 year. So just to give you an example, if I was going to make an investment today with a local authority, I could do it for 5 years. But if I was to do it, to agree it today, to place it with them tomorrow, which is classed as a forward deal, I'd be restricted to 1 year. And what I'm saying is that for forward deals only, we want the period to be up to 5 years.
Right.
Thank you, Audra.
Because of course the money that we've lent to Kettering that matures in 22-23 will be the North will be furnishing that debt. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Is there anything more on that paper, or shall we take it? Sorry, there are no members that wish to speak on that. So are we happy to take it to the vote?
Chair, I would like to say, I think if members grasp that point quite simply, then I'm very impressed, actually. It's one of those things perhaps we don't get to think about on a daily basis about how it works, but we know with the team take very good care of it. Thank you.
Right, I think that I had a few problems with your connection, Colin, but I think that was your completion. So, members, we'd like to take this. Are we happy to recommend this strategy statement to full council? If you're happy to do so, please indicate with a raised hand. Thank you. And any opposed? I'm going to sign. No. Okay. And you'll find all the capital and revenue budgets and medium-term financial plan, etc., etc. Over to you, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's one of the beauties of Zoom meetings, isn't it? You're not always sure if you're being heard and at what times you're being heard. So sometimes you feel like you're thinking out loud. So basically, it'll come as no surprise, particularly in the news today. We've got local authorities like Croydon, etc., having challenges, that income is down across everywhere and has an impact on local authorities. And of course, as a result of this, our own activities will be realigned and reprofiled. But thanks, actually, in a major part, due to the prudence you've shown across the years, we're probably in a lot better shape than many other local authorities, of course. We built up a good cushion. So basically, in this paper, we've got a series of items to bring to recommendation. And I won't keep referring back to these at the front, but you'll see if we go through them. I would like to bring your attention to items 5 and 6, actually first, strangely enough. Now, if you turn to page, it's a relatively short document for one of these this evening, obviously, because of where we are in the life of the local authority. But if you go to section 4.3 on page 199, you'll see there are 2 items there. Over the last 6 months or so, and we presented this paper, members have been requesting that items are split out, and therefore we take the recommendations as in individual ways. And that's why this evening you got 5 and 6, but actually number 6 basically relates to the pair of revenue bids, but actually the second of those you've already agreed to. In the paper from Councillor Cribbin on page 165. So I wanted to bring, that's another reason why I brought that to your attention earlier, so it was coming up on this paper. So in actual fact, whilst we agree on this paper, you've actually already agreed it. So that's one thing I want to draw to your attention about item 6. Let's walk through the paper and I'll give you a couple of highlights on the paper. So the first one is with respect to the SIL receipts for the financial year. We've seen a reduction of those for small rural sites and the windfalls around that of £638,000, unsurprisingly. As we move into the capital programme, we spoke earlier about the Chapel Brampton pedestrian crossing removal of the scheme. So that's an adjustment there to the capital programme bring to your attention. You'll remember this fascinating item we had a discussion about earlier in the year, regards to the electrical distribution boards. Because these in actual fact are not a capital item, they have been removed from the programme, that scheme. Leisure Centre East, we spoke about this in the earlier paper, particularly I draw your attention to the October date and the fact it's obviously not open because of lockdown. We did actually have an underspend, I'm pleased to report, on that particular project to the tune of 1.450 millions. So that's a good news on an underspend now, a project delivered. We've got then grant aid to voluntary community service groups. You've got the Welford cricket facilities there coming in for 106 monies. Let's draw to your attention to. And as you know, folks, this is all really about housekeeping, bringing these to your attention now. There is also the Welford Sports Pavilion, again 106, and the full details in your paper, but simply highlight that one in there. And then we've got the Brixworth Short Mat Bowls and the Brixworth Parish Council, again that we spoke about in the previous item. So that has been dealt with. So again, that's all wrapped up for good housekeeping. And then we've got some other grants and some other activities, to speak of. So we've got the disabled facilities grants, proposed adjustment there. And we've got an adjustment of regarding the funding for the cinema in 4.16. This is actually a net nil, basically simply drawing it to your attention due to a previous error in the way we'd displayed and presented that information. Then we move into the SIL programme changes. Basically, we spoke about the 638,000 shortfall earlier in terms of our budgeting profile. And as you can see in the paper, without going through all the details, many of the schemes, of course, because of where they are in the status of planning, etc., and deliveries, they'll be rolled back, as you can see, having an impact on the SIL as it comes in. Then in terms of SIL-related expenditure, again, you've got the Chapel Brampton mentioned, which we spoke about a couple of occasions already, and some slippage. So, for instance, related to the Daventry to Braunston cycle track. And I also wanted to get some clarity on this one, actually, Simon, if I may. It mentions the £113,000 relating to the cycle bridge over the canal at Crick. Could you tell us, would you mind just a question through the chair, giving us the status of that, please, Simon? I actually thought it had completed, to be perfectly honest, that piece of work. Thank you. Simon Bowers, through the chair, if I may.
I will assume the chairman is happy that I speak.
Oh, no, I did say carry on.
Thank you. The bridge was installed. Looks very good, I have to say, and it's been paid for. Job done.
Good, excellent. Well, that was interesting there in the paper because so basically it was 113 relating to the bridge over the canal, but it's still slippage in terms of how it's moved. But it's all done. I mean, I thought so. I mean, I believe I've walked on it myself. Actually, that bridge, and it does look great. Actually, yeah. So that's all in good order then. Thank you, Simon. Then we've got basically a little bit around Norse Depot forward funding. And then really, as you get towards the back, the final piece of the jigsaw is about the growth bids. We'd already dealt with the growth bid regarding the compliance and enforcement. This extra one here is regarding the shop fronts. And this will be proposed to be funded through 106. And for the avoidance of doubt, it was actually an annual scheme. And this is basically asking for the scheme to be refreshed for this year because we've had some interest in it as well from shopkeepers, etc. So bringing that all together, it's in many respects a shorter paper than we're familiar with at this point, but of course where we are. We won't be setting the budget for next year, of course, because we're becoming a part of the unitary, and that chair is that the way I've walked through that report there covers those items for the attention of members and draws out any specific items. Thank you.
Any comments, please? No, I think just a general comment. First of all, thank you, officers, for splitting these into elements. If we did need, I do propose we take them all en masse in this occasion, but it is good if certain members have issues on a specific item within the financial report. And also a big thank you to Audra and her financial team. You know, we've always prided ourselves on the team's prudence, Daventry District Council's prudence, led by Audra. And I think they have been vindicated, that it is because we are in really difficult times. And had we continued to survive as a district council, we would have weathered the storm really well because of sound financial management. And that's a great accolade to Audra and her team and the senior leaders of this council who supported that policy. Thank you very much. It's just a shame that we couldn't continue on doing the great work and providing excellent services for the people of the district. Sorry.
I think, Chair, Audra and the team had a bit of Mystic Meg about them, you know, we were sort of saying, keep the money safe in case, well, you can never ever expect anything like the team prepared us for this, Chair.
I'm not a gambling man, but I would be asking her for the lottery numbers if I was, but anyway, there you go. Okay, so strategy group members, if you're happy to take them on block, if you're happy to recommend 1 to 6 to full council, please do so by an indicated hand. Thank you. And any opposed by like sign. or abstentions? No, that's it. That's great. Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Appreciate your briefing and all the work. I think that takes us to any urgent business. Chief Executive, anything for us?
No, Vice Chairman.
No, okay. In that case, I then propose we close the meeting. Thank you very, very much, everyone. Good meeting tonight, very thorough. Thank you all those that presented papers and for officer support. And please have a good